Mountainous areas around the world are vulnerable to mudslides and landslides. When drought and fire are added to the mix, the risks are even greater.
When a wildland fire comes through, like the Thomas Fire, it just completely scorches the vegetation in the hillsides. It kills the seed beds, it kills the plants. It doesn't allow the earth time to kind of regenerate and heal and repair itself.
A wildfire removes the vegetation and produces a lot of ash. The ash can infiltrate the soil and make it almost impermeable to water. And then the plants themselves release a waxy substance that can seal the surface.
As rain falls, it can't penetrate the waxy, ashy layer.
So when it rains, it just quickly runs off, and the runoff can be up to 10 times more than would normally be produced without a fire. It can move boulders up to the size of buses. The weight of the boulders is pretty close to the weight of the fluid that's moving them. So they kind of bob along like ping pong balls along a stream. And there's no limit on the size of the boulder that can be transported.
Within minutes, multiple mudslides are barreling through Montecito, destroying everything in their paths.
It almost was like a scene from a horror movie. People were covered from head to toe in mud, and people were confused and they were cold. People were crying, people were yelling, and I realized that not as many people evacuated as we thought had.
Downhill from Maeve, for those who haven't already evacuated, it's too late to flee.
I ran back to where Peter was. He was in the bathroom. He told me immediately, jump onto the vanity. And I started to shake, and I was like, Peter, Peter, Peter. And he tried to calm me down and just said, if we need to, we'll get higher. If we need to get to the roof, we'll do that. And it was moments after that, I saw our two vehicles float past the window. And I knew something bad's gonna happen. The house actually started to lift off its foundation. It did like a little waft, a second waft, and the third waft, the house just lifted off its foundation and launched us out into the flow of mud and water. It was a miracle that I didn't die in that moment.
The people who didn't evacuate didn't know it was coming, and when it was coming, it was probably too late. People reported the boulder front is coming down and lines of trees falling down like a mass of elephants behind pushing down the trees through a forest. And it makes a big noise. Debris flows move, they probably sound like a freight train going by. You can hear it coming, you can see it coming.
As the mud flow hits their home, Lalo and Peter are swept away into a torrent of mud, trees, and boulders.
I went into survival mode. Instead of trying to resist, I went with the flow. And Peter yelled at me at that point and said, Lalo, grab onto some wood and you don't let go. I looked over my left shoulder. I saw Peter for the last time.
As Lalo desperately searches for something to grab onto, Maeve jumps from survivor to rescuer.
I had asked my two firemen to start knocking on doors. They found a couple whose house was closest to the gas explosion. Their house had caught on fire, and they jumped out of the window to escape. And when the wife jumped out, she broke both of her feet. It was still pouring rain, it was dark, there was still a ton of confusion. The only light that we had was from the glow of the fire down the street.
Maeve calls for an ambulance, but she's told they can't get to her.
And I remember being incredibly frustrated, thinking, why can't anyone access us? I don't understand why they can't get in here. So I said, fine, then I'll drive them to you. As we came down the street, I got a glimpse of what was happening, and the entire community that I was used to driving through had washed away. Everything was gone, and there were just power lines and boulders and pieces of homes and roofs in the street.
It felt like an alien landscape. You didn't know where the road even was anymore. It was just such a surreal, shocking, visceral feeling. I just couldn't process it at all. It was too big. It was just too big.
Further downhill, Lalo and Peter have been ripped from their home. As Lalo loses sight of Peter, he fights to stay alive.
I was going probably about 25, 30 miles an hour at that moment. So when I hit the tree, I grabbed it from its side, but my head still hit the tree pretty hard. But I hung on to the tree, and I started to try and figure out what my next move was going to be. I started to notice the amount of boulders, rocks, cars, trucks, everything was coming down the creek, and I just felt like something was going to snap me in half. I just had that terrifying feeling in my spine that I'm here held on this tree, but something's going to smash me up against it. Once the mud flow started to recede a little bit, it became less liquefied and more thick, but I felt it was safe enough to get off the tree.
Lalo has no idea what's happened to Peter. And as the rain continues to pour down, Maeve comes to a stark realization.
There were just 7 of us from the Montecito Fire Department. We kind of started to realize that we were stranded.
Once the mudslides that have overrun Montecito run their course, search and rescue efforts begin. But with roads and entire neighborhoods washed away, there's no easy way for help to arrive. Maeve calls for reinforcements.
Once the Coast Guard came overhead, I landed and I notified them that the female patient that I had couldn't walk. I just put her on my back and I walked her up through the field to the helicopter and handed them both over to the care of the Coast Guard. I kind of felt a little bit of a relief and felt like I could start finding more people and getting more people out of harm's way.
Like many stranded in the wake of the mudslides, Lalo waits for first responders to arrive.
When the ambulance came, I was a little hesitant to leave because I didn't feel like I was in that bad a shape, but the paramedics said that, no, you're suffering hypothermia.
There were just an endless barrage of 911 calls of person not breathing,
Need help.
person trapped,
Our house is filled with mud. I have a newborn.
drowning, mud in the home, flooding.
I don't know if we're gonna live.
I heard cries for help coming from every direction. It was still dark at this point. The sun was just coming up, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, there's so many people in here.
My reaction when I first saw what was happening was shock, overwhelm, sense of being disconnected from reality, that this couldn't be happening. Mud everywhere, the boulders the size of small buildings. I just had never seen anything like that.